where Opie gets fined $500 for doing yoga in her backyard. Our next Reddit post is from A user. My HOA fined me $500 because they said I was using my front yard to conduct a business. This happened about 2 years ago. I lived in a house with a big front yard. It was a great space to do yoga, so I would practice out there every morning while drinking coffee. No one had ever said anything to me about it before. One day I got a letter saying that I had violated the rules of the neighborhood by practicing yoga in my front yard, which they called using my front yard to conduct a business. I thought it was kind of ridiculous, but I wrote them back explaining that I wasn't conducting a business and that I didn't even own a mat or any special clothes or equipment. I was just practicing yoga, which I learned online for free, and that I was planning to continue. A few days later, I received another letter saying that I had again violated the rules by ignoring their previous letter, and that if I didn't stop, I would be fined $500. They also said that since I ignored their previous letter, they were now considering taking me to court. I told them to go ahead. I asked my neighbor what she thought about all this, and she said that she was surprised that I hadn't received a letter yet. She said that she did yoga on her balcony every morning and had gotten a letter about it several months ago. She showed me the letter, which said that she needed to stop immediately or she would get a fine. She chose to ignore the letter and hasn't heard from them since. I decided to continue doing my yoga and waited for them to take me to court. Of course, they never did. About 6 months later, when it was no longer light enough in the morning to do yoga, I moved into a new place, and that was the end of that. It's still funny to me how they threatened to take me to court, but never did. If they had tried, I could have laughed at them in court. There's no way I would have lost that. Case up. I hope you understand that you did actually win. The HOA blinked first. You stood your ground. You did not back down and they backed off. You are a winner. Down in the comments, we have this story from another user. My neighbor had the nerve to put up Christmas lights in November. The HOA sent her a warning. She put them up in October following year, and the HOA said, enjoy your Christmas decorations while you have them up. You won't be fined this year. So sometimes standing your ground does work. Sometimes it doesn't. And in those cases, you need to get creative, like the time that this Reddit user took revenge on their HOA. Our next Reddit post is from another user. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working as a contractor, remodeling a home in a neighborhood. During the process, I met the homeowners, who told me they were planning to install a hot tub after we finished. Fast forward 2 months, and the owners are now complaining to me about the HOA. Apparently, they had sent them a letter telling them they had 30 days to remove the hot tub because it was installed without prior approval. The letter stated that failure to comply would result in a $250 fine for each day the tub remained in violation. After I left the job, the owners called me to complain about the HOA, then hung up on me. A week later, they called me back, asking me if I could please move the hot tub back to its original position. I asked why, and they said the HOA had visited and told them they had 2 options. Either the hot tub had to go, or they would be fined $750 per day until it was removed. They asked if I could do it for about 45 minutes of labor, and I agreed. When I arrived, the hot tub was under construction. I looked around and saw that everything was staged and ready to move the tub back. However, I noticed something. All of the plumbing had been changed to accommodate the permanent location of the tub. I Informed them that moving the tub back would require disconnecting all of the new plumbing. They said the HOA told them they would resend the fines if they agreed to disconnect all of the plumbing and reinstall the tub in its original location. Problem solved. So yeah, that one's on the HOA. That one's on me. But it's not a loss if I can save someone money. It's just funny how people think that other people are always trying to screw them over, so they try to screw them over right back. But maybe in that case, everyone kind of got screwed over because it seems like nobody really knew what they were doing. And yeah, that one's on me. I don't know. I'm going to leave that one up to you guys. And finally, we have this story from another user. It was a hot summer night, and I wanted to sit outside and read a book instead of sitting inside in the air conditioning. However, I live in a townhouse in a homeowners association, and my little patio is enclosed by a 6-foot-tall wooden fence and a wrought iron fence, meaning that the only way for anyone to see into my patio is by looking over the top of the fence. Nevertheless, at 8 p.m. at night, I receive a knock on my door from my neighbor across the street. I opened the door and she said, "Hello, is this your dog barking?" I said, "No, that must be the neighbors down the street." She says, "Well, I can hear it and it's disturbing me. Would you mind turning off whatever it is that's making the noise?" I said, "But there's nothing going on here and I can't hear anything through the closed doors and windows. Are you sure it's coming from here?" She said, "Yes, I'm sure. Could you check, just in case?" I said, "Okay." And I went on to my patio to look around. As I walked out the door, I could hear my dog barking. I said, okay, he's barking at a cricket that's on the patio." I was about to say something to my neighbor when I realized that my dog was jumping on the iron fence and barking at the cricket. Meanwhile, my neighbor was leaning against my fence looking into my yard. I felt uneasy about my neighbor sticking her head in my yard like that. So I yelled, "Hey!" Startled, she jumped back and I said, "What are you doing in my yard?" She said, "I wasn't in your yard. I was in mine." Then she pointed the fence between our yards and said, "Can you hear him?" "Yeah," I said, and he's going to be quiet in a second. Meanwhile, my dog had already stopped barking, and as if on cue, the cricket chirped once and landed on the ground. My dog started barking again. I was about to respond when she cut me off and said, "Well, I'd better let you get back to whatever you're doing." And she turned and walked away. Later that night, I received a letter from the HOA stating that I had violated the rules by making excessive noise past a certain time. I guess that the HOA sided with my neighbor instead of checking if the noise was actually coming from my house or talking to me to find out what was happening. Well, ops, the good news is that crickets chirp twice, so the odds of a cricket landing on your fence and chirping are pretty low. The bad news is that crickets chirp twice, so the odds of a cricket landing on your fence and chirping are pretty low, but it can happen. So you should probably invest in some earplugs. If you like this content, check out my podcast, where I publish the exact same episodes.